So we can start. Let's look at electroconvulsive therapy, also defined, also abbreviated as the term ECT. So it's also a quite useful therapy. Throughout our discussion, we'll just look at how useful is this therapy. Okay, so as part of the introduction, you need to know that for the modern ECT, it tends always to induce therapeutic seizures under general anesthesia to rapidly relieve severe psychiatric symptoms. Okay, so throughout our discussion, we also look at what are the key indications. Why should we do this, and before we do, what are we supposed always to do? Okay, so for starters, you need, as part of the definition, we can say that ECT is it delivers a small amount of it delivers a small amount or a small pulse electrical current to the brain under general anesthesia to intentionally induce a brief therapeutic generalized seizure. So that is part of the definition. So throughout evolution, throughout theory, initially people used to do this ECT without general anesthesia, but currently it's something that is being practiced. Okay, so if you try compare the lectures before or the statistics before, it was not any patients used not all any patients used to have more side effects, because if you try see, if we do this without the use of the anesthesia, then it becomes something that is too lethal. As part of the mechanism of action, this procedure tends always to cause changes to cerebral blood flow, and also it brings about regional glucose metabolism. Then it significantly alters the expression and also secretion of key neurotransmitters. These neurotransmitters, we talk of the serotonin, dopamine, acetylcholine, epinephrine, and norepinephrine. That's part of the mechanism of action. What about the clinical indications and the target conditions? So this is always a first-line treatment for issues with urgent psych conditions, and also treatment for resistant disorder. So I'll try to list them. One, we talk of the major depressive disorder, is always indicated for treatment of resistant depression that is unresponsive to multiple medications. Okay, and probably if they come with melancholic features and the peripartum depression, that is always key. Number two, we can talk of issues like bipolar disorder. This type of treatment is always highly effective for managing severe mania and also the bipolar depression its face. Okay, then other things with catatonia. For catatonia, we tend always to utilize when the patients are resistant to the use of benzodiazepine trials, and they tend always to present with malignant catatonia, which tend always to carry a risk of imminent mortality. That's why we talk of the use of this ECT. Then we can also talk of things like schizophrenia. For schizophrenia, in case we are having other issues, so we can say it tends always to augment the psychotic response to clozapine resistant cases. So we'll always find probably we've started the clozapine and we're having the resistant cases, or we're having cases with acute positive symptoms. So this is always an indication that we need to do this ECT. Okay. Then finally, in case of urgent care, okay, so probably we're having issues with rapid definitive response if it's required, so as to avert issues with self-harm or even harm to others. That's a key indication of doing this electroconvulsive therapy. So throughout its use, it has demonstrated a higher response rates and also rapid resolution of suicidal ideation. So from the numbers that are being displayed, you can try look. Like we're having 70 to 95% overall efficacy. Then we're having around 80 to 90% that is first line response. Okay. But apart from that, you're also having resistant cases that is 50 to 60%. Okay. So in case of we having issues with suicidal ideation, there's always a success. So we'll try see, probably if we start our first session, 38 session, 61% of the session, 76%. So we try to relate it with the session. Like you'll always find others, when they just do the first session, 15% of them, they tend always to have the complete resolution of suicidal ideation. Okay, so Others, like if we do 3 sessions, so it depends with different individuals. They tend always to respond differently, okay? But we are having good numbers with 70 to 90% overall efficacy. So that means it's a therapy that it really helps. So before we do this electroconvulsive therapy, there are things that you're supposed always to do. So we talk of the pre-treatment evaluation protocols, okay? So these are the comprehensive pre-treatment evaluation, which tends always to mitigate risk factors that can be associated with anesthesia and also the seizure inductions. Remember when we talked of ECT, we say we are trying to artificially induce grand mal seizures, okay? So we need to do the comprehensive pre-treatment evaluation so as to mitigate all these risk factors that can be associated with the anesthesia that we are using and also the seizures that we are inducing, okay? So the clinical diagnostics, we need always to do a complete medical history, not forgetting about the physical exam. At this point, I think you are clear with that. And also we need to do mental status exam, okay? So we talk of the medical history, we talk of the physical exam, then we talk of the mental health assessment. These are always required, okay? So as to expose any risk factors, such as we talk of cardiac ischemia and also intracranial pathology. So cardiac ischemia and intracranial pathology, they are things that in case we detect while we are doing all this history taking and also the physical exam, these clients, we are always supposed to hold them not to go on with this procedure, okay? As part of the diagnostic testing, it's essential that we do the pre-procedure test, and we can do like issues like ECG, that is electrocardiogram. Why should we do this? Because we are trying to monitor the heart's health. Then we can also do the basic blood test, okay? Then we can also do a baseline cognition screen, not forgetting about issues with chest x-ray, depending with the current guideline that you guys are using over there. That's about the clinical diagnostic. We've talked of the pre-treatment evaluation protocol, okay? Apart from that, there are also other things like the approvals and also the legal issues. As part of the approvals, you need always to do the specialist review. So we do the both anesthesia review and also the specialist medical review. We need always to do, it's supposed to be conducted prior to the treatment so as to ensure the procedure is safety, okay? Apart from that, we need always to have signed the informed consent, okay? So this entails we need to have a detailed discussion regarding the risk of doing this and the potential cognition side effects, okay? So once we've done all this, the client has always to do the informed consent, okay? So let's say we've done all this. So what is the next thing, okay? So before we do this, there are things that we are always supposed to do. One, we check for dietary fasting, okay? So we need always to do the restriction, and these clients or these patients, they must abstain from food or even drink at least 8 hours prior to the treatment, okay? So other lectures or other places, they use the 6 hours, okay? But we can stick to at least 8 hours prior to the procedure. Then the medication preparation, okay? So we need always to be key with the medication that we are giving before we take these clients to the electroconvulsive therapy, the ECT sessions, okay? Then before we take them, we need to do the clearance. This entails a brief physical exam. Apart from that, we are also assessing the heart and also the lung stability, okay? We can also do the blood glucose levels. We are trying to check the levels prior to the treatment, but at this point we are focusing on the diabetic patients, okay? So we talk of the blood levels is always checked, requiring levels below 200 prior to the treatment for diabetic patients, okay? Then we need always to do the intravenous line, which is always inserted so as to deliver essential medications and also fluids, okay? So once we've done all this, so we'll look at now what are the key things that we mainly use. One, we do the anesthesia induction and the muscle relaxation, okay? For anesthesia inductions, patients tend always to receive the general anesthesia. So we do intravenously. Why should we do this? We want to ensure that these clients are completely asleep and they feel no pain during the procedure. Okay. 2, we need always to do the airway protection. Okay. So we do the bite block, which is always placed prior to induction so as to protect the patient tongue, teeth, and also any potential injury. So we do the IV induction, then we do the airway protection. Okay. What about muscle relaxant? For the issues with muscle relaxant, we mainly use the Succinylcholine. So this is always a depolarizing muscle relaxant. So it's administered intravenously to significantly reduce the tonic-clonic muscle contractions. Okay. Sawa sawa. Apart from that, we need to do monitoring relaxation. Okay. So to some point, we use the nerve stimulator tracker, okay, which tends always to track the relaxant effects. Okay. Alternatively, we can use the blood pressure cuff, which is always inflated on the ankle so as to prevent the relaxant from entering the foot, and this will always allow visual monitoring of the seizure activity. Sawa sawa. Next is about the electrode placement. How do we place? Okay, so we can either do the unilateral or the bilateral. Okay, so the bilateral is the one that is more common. Okay, for unilateral, it's always utilized so as to minimize the retrograde amnesia and also to ensure we're having superior cognitive presentation. Okay, so as part of its maximum efficacy, unilateral ECTs tends always to maximize the therapeutic efficacy with highly optimized dosing strategies up to 6 times of the seizure threshold. What about the bilateral? Bilateral, it means we are putting on both sides. Okay, so the anatomical pad placement, the pads always placed temporarily. Okay, sawa sawa. But you need to know we are having issues with lower relative stimuli dosing, which is typically sufficient at 1.5 times the seizure threshold. Okay, sawa. Next, what about the immediate post-procedure recovery? So this means the client they have gone into the procedure. So post-op, what are we supposed always to do? So we need always to check the issues with awakening, the vitals, the reorientation, and finally the discharge. Okay, so awakening, you always find its time frame is around 5 minutes. Okay, so patient typically awaken within 5 minutes of the procedure. Okay, at this point they might be having confusion, which is always expected. Okay, sawa because the anesthesia is currently now wearing off. Okay. 2, we need always to do vitals, continuous monitoring. We check the heart rate, the rhythm, the blood pressure, the blood oxygen levels, which are supposed always to be monitored. Okay. Then 3, reorientation. It takes around 20 to 30 minutes. Okay. So patients are always systematically reoriented as cognition clarity steadily returns. Okay. Then finally, the discharge can take a time frame of 30 to 40 minutes. Okay, so you need to know at this point, patients must always remain in the treatment area for around 30 to 45 minutes. Okay, until they are deemed safe for discharge. Okay, as part of the safety, in case the patient came in driving, they must be driven back home. Okay, and we need always to prohibit them from driving for at least 24 hours. Okay. The percentage side effects, ECT is generally well tolerated, with most side effects being transient and also manageable. Okay, so it can bring about the somatic side effects or even the cognitive and memory side effects. Somatic, the physical symptoms, they might present with headache, jaw ache, muscle ache, and also nausea. The medical management, we just do the standard pain relief and also the use of anti-nausea medication. Okay, then the cognitive, patients might have, we talk of the anterograde amnesia or the retrograde amnesia. So this means they will be having loss of memories of events from weeks or even months prior to the treatment. Okay, but with time they tend always to cope up with these cognitive and memory side effects. Okay, sawa. So you need to know According to psychiatric consensus, they say that successful ECT programs, they tend always to go beyond the procedure room. So they rely on vigorous informed consent, continuous monitoring, and patients' advocacy to ensure the effective treatment remains accessible to whoever needs it. To whoever needs it most. Okay, so we've talked about the informed consent, we've talked of the ongoing assessment, we've talked of the patient advocacy and also support system. Up to that point, we are done with our detailed lecture on electroconvulsive therapy. So if there's any other question, the way we've just said, you can just post it down the chat box, then I will respond to your questions.